So for 4 years consecutively, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022.
Is the podcast from the BBC World Service, bringing you extraordinary personal stories from around the globe.
An initiative by Sierra Leone's judiciary seeking to increase access to justice and decongest correctional facilities across the country. A review of prison conditions is taking place in Sierra Leone with the aim of reducing overcrowding in the facilities. The country's judiciary department is using a system which sees senior judges go to the prisons themselves to review cases in order to expedite them. Overcrowding in prisons is a common problem across Africa, with countries like Cameroon, Zambia, Burundi, and Rwanda hosting some of the most overcrowded prisons. I've been speaking to Umaru Fofana, who went to the country's central prison to attend a session and has been telling me how the country is seeking to turn the situation around. Hey Umaru, it's great to have you on Focus. I know it's been a minute since the last time we spoke. I think must have been the elections, yeah?
Yes, it was around the elections. Must have been in June, yeah.
Yeah, so I see you've been up to something lately, and you had a chance to visit the country's central prison. And I don't know, you could tell us exactly, what did you see?
Well, first off, under the country's laws, the Chief Justice has the power to review cases before judges. So in this case, he decided to delegate that power to some senior judges to look at both active cases that are before the magistrate courts and convictions. So I went to the Pademba Road Correctional Center, which is the country's maximum security prison, where an appeals court judge and the Supreme Court one held their sittings. Now, they are reviewing more than 340 cases relating to inmates inside the facility. Some of those prisoners are on remand, that is, those whose trials are still going on, and some whose trials have been concluded. Now, the inmates were brought before the judges in batches, and many of them looked forlorn and even befuddled, to be honest. Some wore torn clothes and looked at the judges in utter consternation and bewilderment.
Sorry to interrupt the report real quick, but I just want to give you guys a backdrop. And what you guys are seeing is the report from the State's Department. So for 4 years consecutively, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, the State's Department of the United States of America has been putting out these reports, giving the overcrowded prisons in Sierra Leone. But I think maybe this is an oversight on the part of the BBC folks, because they should have done their research to bring up stuff like this, because it is not new, as far as the overcrowding in Sierra Leone specifically. But if they've done their research, they would know that the State's Department and other agencies have been putting out, these, terrible stats about what is actually happening in the prison systems in Sierra Leone. But that's why I interrupted you guys, because I want you guys to understand that the BBC should be doing due diligence before they take on certain issues. They should know stuff like this. And this is what has been happening, because it has been reported on 4 years. But we all know why this government is doing this now. Again, it's just laundering their image. They want to present this persona like they really care. Umaru Fofana does not care. Legal Link does not care. This government of, this illegal government, does not care. They don't care about all of this stuff. All they're doing right now is just to launder their image. And I want you guys to understand, it's just image laundering at this particular point in time. That is why they're doing this, taking up this initiative. Because for 4 years, the State's Department has been reporting on the abuse that is going on in our prisons, the crowded conditions in the prison systems, but these guys really don't care. They're only doing this now to sell their image. I just want you to bear that in mind while you're listening to this BBC report done by Umaru Fofana. Bye-bye, guys. Continue to listen.
One after the other, the judges put their cases to them, studied their files, and essentially fast-tracked their trials. For allegations bordering on some misdemeanors, some have been behind bars for years. Some for allegedly stealing items valued at less than $50. One of the many cases that stood out was that of a 24-year-old man who had been in jail for 4 years for allegedly stealing 3 bags of pepper. His case had dragged on for so long that even if he'd been convicted, he would have long served his jail term. He was released by Appeals Court Justice Momo Jas Stevens, who had this to say as he acquitted him.
Following your plea of guilt, I must say emphatically and in no uncertain terms that you have been treated without justice and diligence by the justice delivery system. The offense for which you have been tried is simple larceny, and the maximum penalty is 5 years. You have been behind bars beyond the maximum period for trial. I hereby caution and discharge you, and I wish you the very best in life. A significant number of years have been wasted in your youthful career.
That's Appeals Court Justice Momo Jas Stevens. Over to you, Richard.
Yes, Umaru, just listening to Justice Stevens speaking there, he was very, very blunt. And whatever he's highlighted are really pretty serious issues. What was the reaction from the freed prisoners?
Yes, indeed. He sounded very serious. And, what he said in court has sort of like gone viral here with many people praising him. There are more than 100 prisoners who have been freed during these case reviews across the country. And there are many more cases still under review. Some of those freed have looked at the judges in utter shock and disbelief. One stared at Justice Stevens, looking from being poker-faced to even excited and angry. I mean, to be honest, all together. He then broke down before smiling again. Another one said to me that he had given up hope because he wasn't even sure why he'd been held for that long without a bail, or why the case had even dragged on for that long. Granting bail here, Richard, has guidelines, but it is largely at the discretion or the say-so of the magistrate or a judge, which campaigners here say has been abused. But all in all, the freed prisoners honestly couldn't be happier.
Umaru, just looking at the backlog that's been there for a while, break it down for us. What's really the cause of overcrowding in the country's prisons? Do we know the reason why?
Well, there are many reasons, some obvious, such as the fact that the country's population has increased substantially since those facilities were built and no new ones have been constructed. But essentially, the reasons border on the way cases are handled by the courts, and it seems everyone here agrees on that. Firstly, as at early this week, there were nearly 6,500 prisoners across the country. More than 2,000 of those are inside the Pademba Road prison in Freetown, which was built for only 324 prisoners. That's more than 6 times its capacity, that it's currently holding. As to why the overcrowding, have been talking to Ibrahim Tomi, the Executive Director of the Center for Accountability and Rule of Law.
Delays in trials. Prolonged pre-trial detention has been a major problem with our justice system. Credit to the leadership of the judiciary. We have seen some progress in terms of hiring judges and magistrates, but that has not really had a significant impact on the pace with which these criminal proceedings go. Judges and magistrates still use what is called longhand. They basically have to write out everything that the witnesses and even lawyers say.
And the issue of the lack of lawyers, some people just do not have access to lawyers, and the legal aid board was set up to do that. What's happening on that front?
Even with their best efforts, the legal aid board doesn't have the resources, certainly not the financial resources, to respond to the justice needs of all the accused persons that appear before the courts. It is even worse in the magistrate court, especially in Freetown. When we did a survey a couple of years ago, we realized that less than 20% of the accused persons in the magistrate courts get represented by lawyers. There is also the problem of accused persons being remanded and they get forgotten about only because they do not have lawyers, or perhaps the court staff are not as diligent to remember that some matter has been adjourned. So it's a problem that can be fixed. We have been reviewing the Criminal Procedure Act since 2005. We should finish that job now to ensure that we create a system that allows judges and magistrates to impose alternative sentences such as community punishment order, deferred sentences, or even suspended sentences. At the moment, they cannot because the law doesn't allow them. But there is one major problem, and that has to do with bail. There is a bail regulations, but compliance with it is not as effective as it should be.
Ibrahim Tomi there. And so, Umaru, this is an issue of public interest, considering whatever has been brought about as a result of, this investigation by the judiciary. How's the public reacted to this story?
There have been praises for the Chief Justice and his initiative by some people, while others have been critical of the causes of the overcrowding in the first place. They want an overhaul of the country's penal code system, the delays in trying cases, and an end to what somebody called arbitrary discretion of magistrates and judges in seizing the liberty of people, hence sending them to prison. So it depends on who you talk to, but generally, people have been happy, but at the same time, they've really questioned what goes on in the courts that leads to these delays and the overcrowding of the prisons.
Umaru Fofana with that report.